reported being shot at from all sides by Israeli soldiers, drones, helicopters, boats and tanks. This account contradicts what Israel says, but it accords with accounts from witnesses, including survivors. MSF quotes one of the men who'd wanted to collect food as saying, "They told us to take food, then they fired from every direction." The charity said the new system of aid delivery by a controversial American-run group was dangerous and ineffective. Barbara Plett-Asher is in Jerusalem.
These are the competing narratives that we're getting. In terms of what our sources have been telling us, it sounded like people gathered very, very early because they wanted to be in front of the line to go and run and grab aid when the site opened, and that there was some efforts by the Israelis to tell them to move back because it was too early, and perhaps that seems to be the environment in which what happened played out.
And right-wing politicians across Europe have been celebrating the election of Karol Nawrocki as Poland's new president. Nawrocki, who came first by a narrow margin, is a Eurosceptic and expected to continue his predecessor's practice of blocking the government's liberal reforms. The EU Parliament or Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the EU would continue to cooperate with Poland. The BBC's Adam Easton has more on that story.
He'll be much more pushy in terms of his relationship with Brussels, in terms of insisting on Poland following what he believes it's in his national interests. He doesn't want to cede any additional powers to Brussels. He'll be very tough on migration. But there again, the Prime Minister Donald Tusk has been very tough on migration, and that's becoming the European mainstream anyway. But certainly a more combative relationship with Brussels is to be expected under President Nawrocki.
And Mexico's election authority says only around 13% of voters cast their ballots in the country's first elections for its judges. Despite the low turnout, President Claudia Sheinbaum hailed the outcome as a complete success. Voters were selecting around 800 federal judges as well as hundreds of local ones. Mexico is the first country to fill all judicial posts by popular vote. The BBC's Mexico correspondent Will Grant.
The entire idea of choosing every single magistrate and judge in Mexico by direct ballot has divided opinion. You have on the one hand those who are aligned with Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the ex-president, and President Claudia Sheinbaum, who say it's going to fix a broken justice system. It's going to bring the judiciary closer to the people, make it more accountable. But on the other hand, of course, there are those who believe quite the opposite, that essentially it's going to politicize the entire justice system and make it more vulnerable to the infiltration by organized crime.
At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Sepiso Makwetla.
Channel Africa.
At 7 minutes past 9, let's go to one of our top stories. South Africa's Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Phaahla, delivering a keynote address at the World No Tobacco Day stakeholder engagement session on Monday, convened as part of the ongoing efforts by that country's government to highlight tobacco control issues emanating from the legislative development process of the Tobacco Control Bill. One of the issues that came out from the session is that the billion-dollar tobacco industry has now found a way of attracting youth and young children by enticing them with a variety of flavored products with attractive packaging and labeling. Sisi Sekhalo has more.
Tobacco is responsible for over 8 million deaths each year, including more than 1 million from second-hand smoking exposure. This is according to the World Health Organization, WHO. The World Body was one of the organizations attending the event organized by South Africa's Health Department. Shinaz El-Halabi is WHO country representative. She urged everyone in the room to equally fight the powerful tobacco industry.
We are not fighting a fading enemy. We are up against a well-funded, strategic, and relentless industry. The intelligence so far says the tobacco and nicotine industry spends over $1 million every hour globally on advertising, much of it directed at youth. They rely on flavors, powerful packaging, influencers, and digital campaigns to disguise addiction as something fashionable and fun. But behind the glossy ads is a harsh truth. They're not selling products, they're selling disease, dependence, and death. The good news is that we are not powerless. We have science, we have evidence, and we have the truth. Also importantly, we have a global commitment, the FCTC. 183 countries, including South Africa, are parties to the FCTC.
South Africa's Deputy Health Minister, Dr. Joe Phaahla, says the country perpetuates addiction for profit. He says even though the industry does contribute to the economy, the health consequences far outweighs the economic benefits.
As the Health Department, we are committed to breaking this cycle. You're all aware of the fact that we're currently having the Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill in Parliament, which is a critical step to regulate all tobacco and nicotine products comprehensively, because we came to the realization that indeed all these new products were not covered under the currently existing Tobacco Act. Just to remind you in terms of what that bill caters for, plain packaging is covered within that bill. So we want to make sure that we can introduce plain packaging, follow on the countries which have already taken the step. I'm happy that also on the African continent we can learn from some of the countries mentioned.
Young people and learners are equally worried about this problem, which is detrimental to their health and even fatal. They're enticed with flavors and attractive labeling. For young children, they use the labeling of cartoons. One of the trends that has developed among adolescents and youth is vaping. 15-year-old Gemma Daniel, one of the dangers of vaping.
A recent study I'm sure you all are aware of shows that 1 in 3 teens are admitted to trying vaping. The number is rising. If we don't take action now, the long-term health risks, lung diseases, cardiovascular issues, and addiction won't be theoretical, they'll be personal. The Tobacco Control Bill has been sitting for years. You and I both know that every second delayed is a life taken. Today we're not just asking, we are demanding. To the respected members of Parliament and the Department of Health, and to every adult responsible for the safety of children in this country, we are saying, let's stop guarding our industry's profits and instead guard our health. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. Today's
All participants spoke in one voice that urgent action is needed to fight back the industry. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
And China says U.S. President Donald Trump's accusation that Beijing has violated the consensus reached in Geneva trade talks were groundless and promised to take forceful measures to safeguard its interests. More from Reuters News.
China rejected accusations from the US it had broken the consensus of recent trade talks. Beijing said Monday President Donald Trump's accusations were groundless. It also promised to take forceful measures to safeguard its interests and accused Washington of seriously violating their trade truce. The comments came in response to Trump's Friday statement that China had breached a deal to roll back tariffs. US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick spoke on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream.
I think what happened is Secretary Bessent and Ambassador Greer went to Geneva. They made a deal with the Chinese. And really the right way to say it is they're just slow rolling the deal. So I think slow rolling is the right way to say it. And I think Donald Trump is on it.
But China said Monday it had implemented and actively upheld the agreement reached last month in Geneva. It further accused the US of introducing many discriminatory and restrictive measures against China. That included issuing guidance on AI chip export controls, halting sales of chip design software to China, and revoking visas for Chinese students. It did not elaborate on what forceful measures it might take in response. Beijing and Washington agreed in May to pause triple-digit tariffs for 90 days.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla.
Channel Africa.
It's exactly 15 minutes past 9. Now, a recent Afrobarometer survey conducted in partnership with the Center for Research and Opinion Polls has revealed compelling views among Togolese citizens on a number of pressing issues, from the government's response to the terrorist threat in northern Savannah's region to the rise of the alliance of Sahel states formed by Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. The study also highlights evolving attitudes towards ECOWAS, foreign influence in the region, and gender discrimination, painting a complex picture of how Togolese people perceive regional dynamics and their own country's place within them. Joining us now from Lomé in Togo to speak about these findings is Hervé Akinocho, Director of the Center for Research and Opinion Polls and a key contributor to the study. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening.
So just this survey, is it something that's undertaken periodically, or was there something in particular that spurred on the study?
This survey, Afrobarometer have like 2 years, around 2 years round survey. So like every 2 years, every second year, the survey happen in all the country of Afrobarometer that are part of the network. And Togo joined the network since 2012. So we conduct last year our 10th survey in Togo. And some of the result of that survey that you were just talking about earlier.
Okay, let's start with one of these issues, the insecurity that's happening in the Savannah's region. I believe it's a result of a jihadist attack that started in 2021. Can you just give us a little bit more context about what's been happening there and how the situation has evolved almost 4 years later?
Well, unfortunately, since 2021 that we have the first attack in the region, the violence have been spreading, and all the the locality that are nearby the Burkina Faso borders are affected by violence and is even spreading further. So I think things are not being controlled by the government. The government were not able to stop the spread of violence up to now. They are doing their best, but still I think the jihadists are finding their way to still carry on some attacks in the northern part of Togo.
And I believe that nearly 6 in 10 Togolese say they trust the government to contain the root cause of that terror threat. How do they foresee that happening?
Well, I think the government have deployed a lot of security force in the northern region, and also they are also putting in place economic program to be able to target and deal with the root source of that violence, because the terrorist group are recruiting among the youth and the people who feel like they are discriminated or are not taken care of by the government. So right now the government is making a lot of effort to be able to make some more infrastructure, put more development into the region. So they are pushing. I think all those efforts from the government are the reason why the people think that the government will be able to control the violence.
And as you mentioned, the Savannah's region and which countries it borders, it then led your survey to speak on issues around the Sahel Alliance. As we mentioned, the three countries that form that alliance, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. So firstly, if we can just clarify the jihadist destabilization, is it the same group that is causing terror in these other three countries, and are the goals the same?
Well, they are the same group that are destabilizing the three regions, that are trying to spread and gain control of countries that have access to sea, so they can also be able to easily smuggle in their weapon and so on. So I think since few years they are trying through Togo or Benin to see if they can destabilize also one of the coastal country, so they can also be able to access the sea. So that they got right now. And the political goal behind the action, nobody really can say, because they are in some country. When you look at in Mali, they are talking about Islam laws, but in Burkina and in Niger is not the same case. So you don't really, they are just trying to use all the situation that already exists, like the conflict between the Fulanis and the southern, the agriculture, how you call it, sorry, Tom?
The pastoralists?
Yeah, the pastoralists and the people who are doing agriculture, and those conflicts that are there for years now, they are trying to build on that to feed their narrative, but it's not that there is a very defined political goal behind the action, really.
It's interesting because some of the key findings of the survey is that the Togolese citizens actually support the breakaway from ECOWAS of these three countries, because they believe that ECOWAS is working with foreign countries, or is allowing too much of foreign interference.
True. Well, I think it's not only Togo that is, you can, in West Africa in general, you can see that there is a big race against imperialism and more Pan-Africanists that are speaking now. So I think we are at a point in the region where the youth is pushing for more independence and more break out from the control of the former power that is France. And one of the result of one of the survey was like, even when they look at the influence of France in the region, in Togo, almost 53% say that they have a very negative influence on the economy and the political system in the country. So I think one of the things is that people are trying to push out former colonial power, and also asking for more freedom and more self-determination and more economical freedom in the countries.
Then how do they view Togo's continued membership of ECOWAS? Is there a belief that Togo should then do as the other countries have done and pull out of the organization?
Well, I don't think that for now. I think when we ask about that, I think it was about 48 proving that their ECOWAS is doing quite. Togo is having his interests represented by ECOWAS, but also a large number also is thinking that they should pull out, but not more than 50%. So there is a trend that is growing and thinking that ECOWAS is not achieving his goal, but not enough for now to say that Togo has to pull out from ECOWAS. But they think that joining the Sahel Alliance will help Togo to break through, to break out of the hand of the former colonial power, because that's the main fight that those countries are putting in front.
Okay, so let's move away, particularly from the regional and geopolitics, and look at the issue of discrimination against women and girls, which was one of the topics that was covered. What exactly were the respondents being asked, and what were the results?
Well, we asked about different questions, and we were trying to find out if girls and ladies were victims of discrimination or in public transport or in public area in general. And I think 3 out of 10 think that in the region or in the neighborhood, girls are victims of those discrimination, sexual discrimination by the the teachers, but also you have almost 2/3 of the Togolese citizens that think that girls and ladies that are victims and who speak about it will be trusted. So I think it gives us a very good view that the fight against discrimination is progressing in the country, and people are more open and more willing to trust the victim now than before.
Mm. And just finally, what other topics were covered that I didn't mention so far?
Well, we have a lot of topics that have been covered by the survey, and you can see the foreign influence on the country, on Togo, but also you have democracy, you have all the topic about economic well-being of the Togolese. You also touch discrimination against like vulnerable population like HIV and people that are homosexual. All those things are covered by the survey. It's a very big survey, and we have more than 100 questions that we ask, and we disseminate throughout the year the results. So some will come out even very soon about like access to information, also access to justice. All those things have been covered during that survey.
And I'm sure we will be speaking to you again on those results. Thank you very much for your time, Hervé Akinocho, Director of the Center for Research and Opinion Polls, so CROP, based in Lomé in Togo.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
O surto da cólera em Angola tem causado grande preocupação, afetando já mais de metade das províncias do país. Simultaneamente, a Agência dos Estados Unidos para o Desenvolvimento Internacional, USAID, um dos maiores doadores mundiais de assistência humanitária, decidiu não priorizar os países com maior incidência de malária. Para discutirmos as causas do alastramento da cólera em Angola e os impactos dessa decisão da USAID, convidamos o Dr. Jeremias Agostinho, médico e mestre em saúde pública, para partilhar a sua visão sobre o tema.
A doença, nesse momento, representa o maior risco de saúde pública que nós temos. Nos últimos anos, a nossa preocupação esteve sempre centrada com os casos de malária, os casos de tuberculose e também de infecção por VIH-Sida. A forma como, em pouco menos de 2 meses, os casos de cólera vêm aumentando, acaba por representar, nessa altura, um dos maiores desafios que o país tem. É expectável que, nesta fase, o número de casos venha a aumentar.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Sipiso Magweta.
Channel Africa.
And it is just about 29 minutes to 10. You are listening to Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So we continue with some of our top stories. And right now, we dive into a decade-old but often overlooked conflict. Western Sahara, once a Spanish colony, this disputed territory in North Africa has been claimed by both Morocco and the pro-independence Polisario Front, with Algeria backing the latter. Now, in a significant policy shift, the United Kingdom has thrown its support behind Morocco's autonomy plan, calling it the most credible path forward. Joining us now from Norway to speak about this is Eric Hagen, board member of Western Sahara Resource Watch. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening. Thank you for welcoming me to your evening here.
First, let's just understand who Western Sahara Resource Watch is and the work that they do.
Well, our organization is about 20 years old. We're researching, campaigning against those foreign companies, foreign interests, governments with corporate involvement in Western Sahara. As long as this territory is under Moroccan foreign occupation, we believe that it is necessary that foreign entities do not assist Morocco in profiting and exploiting the resources of the territory. We will not see a true viable peace solution as long as Morocco is gaining from the occupation itself. So that's our agenda, working mostly voluntarily from 40 countries internationally.
And this latest development by the UK, can you just expand a little bit more on what exactly is it and how significant it is?
Well, Morocco and the Sahrawi Liberation Movement presented its solutions to the conflict, so to say, 18 years ago to the Security Council. Morocco with its so-called autonomy proposal, and the Sahrawi side presenting their way forward for the conflict to be solved in line with the Security Council resolutions on a referendum in the territory. Now, these solutions are received in different ways. Of course, your government, the South African government, is very clear on the Sahrawi side, supporting the self-determination and decolonization. whereas some of Morocco's closest allies have shown support to this so-called autonomy plan. The autonomy plan basically means it's a dangerous word. It basically means to integrate Western Sahara into Morocco. That's what the autonomy plan in essence means. So to see the UK so clearly now position itself, seeing this autonomy plan as the most viable plan, we find that deeply regrettable. It's UK is a government that tries to give an image that it supports international law, legal principles, human rights internationally, and then to see it taking this approach is regrettable.
And what has changed? Because I understood that in the past, Britain at least supported or understood self-determination. So why does it now believe that integration is the best way forward?
Well, there is a paradox still today after this recent statement that Britain still views self-determination as necessary. However, at the same time, it views the Moroccan approach as the most realistic or pragmatic. There's a paradox. You cannot both say it's up to the people to decide and you say that the aggressor has primarily the right. That doesn't make any sense. The UK would never say self-determination of the people of Ukraine is paramount, and the Russian approach to annex the entire country is a realistic, pragmatic approach. You cannot both say both things, but that's what UK is doing. So there's nothing changed in UK support to international law and self-determination, except that in addition, it does not really prefer it.
And we know, as you mentioned, the UN supported a referendum and sees Western Sahara as a non-self-governance territory. So for the multilateral system and, these discussions underway at the Security Council, what does the UK's position then mean for this issue going forward, basically?
Well, the UN Security Council, the key problem with the conflict has throughout been that the Security Council has had members among the permanent five that have been so strongly favoring the Moroccan side, most of all the French, but now also particularly Donald Trump. So you have US and France are basically saying that Western Sahara is part of Morocco. It's an extreme position to take. So there's nothing new in the sense that there are countries in the Security Council that backs international law, or countries that don't. So the Security Council has always been a bit split. But it's regrettable. Now we have the absurd situation that Russia, which is
the other veto,
violating international law in Ukraine, is the one that is upholding it, while the supporters of Ukraine the roles in Ukraine are upside down. It doesn't make any sense to hear countries like UK support self-determination and aligning with Morocco in Security Council. For us, that makes no sense. But Security Council is then still split, so there will be no new sort of traction in Security Council. As long as there are.
But I'd imagine that it then puts, the Sahrawi on the back foot. If you have another veto member, then
absolutely it becomes more complicated to solve. Absolutely, we have an absurd conflict in which it's very asymmetrical conflict in terms of power. Morocco has close allies internationally. Morocco has the biggest army, the biggest finances, the biggest population, whereas the Sahrawi side only has international law. At least that's the main thing they have. And then they have certain strong support from countries like South Africa. But so there's always been this mismatch between those two countries. What does not change is the international law. I mean, the right to self-determination and the right to decolonization for these people does not change with the UK's shift. So the principles still apply, and the principles can still be applied in international courts. And then you would have this hypocrisy is becoming quite clear. There have now been 10 rulings in the European Court of Justice over the last decade that very clearly state that Western Sahara is not part of Morocco, and any international trade agreements cannot apply to Western Sahara if you sign it with Morocco, etc. So the international courts are on the Sahrawi side, and then it's up to the Western democracies to show how hypocrite they can be.
And obviously, as we mentioned, Algeria backing the Polisario Front. So what are then the implications for escalating tensions between Algeria and Morocco of this latest development? Does that mean that we might even see Britain taking Morocco's side on that front?
Well, that tension has always been there. I mean, since even before the Western Sahara conflict came to the table, since independence in the 60s, these two North African rivals have always been escalating, so to say, or there's always been tension between the two. Having a European country like UK siding with Morocco, I don't necessarily think it changes anything in that dynamic between these two North African states. And also the Algerian support for the Sahrawi side is very strong, just as other African states still. So I don't see necessarily that as a topic.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what is a topic which often is not reflected on, and that is the conditions under which the Sahrawi live under because of this ongoing conflict.
Yeah, the Sahrawis, you can talk about this in two ways. One is relating to those people who live today under foreign occupation, with all the rights deprived from them. Western Sahara scores lowest in the entire world on political freedoms. So there's no space to organize, to protest, to do journalism. There's no space for the UN Human Rights Council special rapporteurs to visit. There's no space for you as a journalist to visit. If you are going to Western Sahara to interview Sahrawis, you as a journalist, you cannot do that. There's no way the Moroccan government will allow you to do that. So it's very difficult for the Sahrawis to live in occupied territories. And then the other half of the population live as refugees in Algeria under very dire humanitarian situation. We all know about the defunding of global aid universe, and this affects also the Sahrawis. Malnutrition affects basically everyone. And they've been living there depending on humanitarian aid for 50 years, waiting to go back. So this conflict has day-to-day consequences. Even though we don't hear much about it in the media, it has severe consequences on human rights and humanitarian affairs, humanitarian side.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated your time and update on the latest on that conflict. Eric Hagen is board member of Western Sahara Resource Watch, speaking to us from Norway. It's exactly 19 minutes to 10.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine.
I want the Africa that makes every single African proud of the continent and have hope. And there's so much stuff that's going on that's positive. And if we can just lock into that, Namaganjan, everyone is going to get there.
Where are we going? Where are we trying to get to?
The idea of working together, which is why I'm excited about this new voice.
And the new voice is me, Asanda Peta, broadcast journalist with about 15 years of experience on the radio space.
Welcome, Asanda. I've been waiting for you for a long time.
Were you waiting for me?
I was.
Really?
Yeah, because for 3 months I was on my own.
So be sure to tune in right here on Channel Africa Mondays to Fridays from 6 to 9 a.m. Central African Time.
If you want to know about your continent, this is the best place to start your day.
Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. And Join the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla.
Channel Africa.
And we continue with news, current affairs, and of course a profile on one of the most influential writers, commentators on rights and politics on the continent, and that is Ngugi wa Thiong'o. As you may have heard that he passed away last week. Shocking news. I know when I saw it, it was just, I think, 2 hours in. I was really touched by it, and tributes continue to pour in for one of those Africa's most celebrated writers and thinkers, the Kenyan author and academic who passed away at the age of 87, leaves behind a profound legacy that reshaped African literature and post-colonial thought. Ngugi's career spanned more than 6 decades, beginning with his groundbreaking 1964 novel Weep Not, Child. To help us understand the impact of Ngugi's work and legacy, we speak now with Kenyan writer and academic Peter Kimani. A very good evening to you and condolences to you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
I was just reading just the introduction of a tribute written by Amver Versi, one of his students, calling the Honorable Ngugi wa Thiong'o as one of the titans of African literature, and saying he was a fearless champion of the rights of people in their battle against oppression and tireless proponent of literature. And I was actually just thinking on how we've just been speaking about the Sahrawi and the conditions under which he lived under. So just within that context, just explain, as if you were explaining to a Martian from some alien land, who Ngugi wa Thiong'o really was.
Okay, well, we did not go to the Mars. We can also explain this to someone who hasn't encountered Ngugi on this universe. And we can say he was really the father of Kenyan literature. You might even say East African literature, because the onset of his writing, his publishing career coincided with what was widely called the wind of change. Many African nations were gaining political independence. So Uganda 1962, Tanzania 1961, Kenya 1963. So his first book, which came out in 1964, coincided with Kenya's independence that just came in December of 1963. We might also remember that his play, The Black Hermit, was performed as part of Uganda's independence celebrations. So we can say he was the father of East African fiction, East African literature, or what came to be associated with the larger movement of African writers who were pioneering in narrating the continent, because for the preceding 400 years, it is early missionaries, explorers, colonial writers that narrated the continent to the world. So he was among a generation that included, Wole Soyinka, Chinua Achebe, among those pioneers who were making a fresh interpretation of the continent as understood by those who lived on the continent.
And as you mentioned his peers, I was actually sending a picture that I saw in an article of Ali Mazrui, of Ngugi wa Thiong'o and Chinua Achebe, Chinua Achebe's son. And I was just saying, what a sad loss. And I want to talk about the thought leadership that he fostered. You speak about East Africa, but it really was universal. And just how he also created a love of literature for children at a very young age.
Absolutely. So, well, we can say Ngugi's fiction, of course, did capture an important part of Kenya's evolution from a colony to an independent state, and those anxieties of nationhood. What did it mean to be Kenyan? What were the carryovers from those who preceded it, and what were the challenges that faced the nation? So, in examining this question, Ngugi's own evolution did occur because he realized the physical departure of British colonialists did not mean total liberation of the people. And one of the elements that he theorized was the language or languages that were spoken and used by a majority of the people. So, in 1977, so barely 15 years after starting his career, Ngugi was detained without trial for a year after returning to his village, mobilizing the community there to script, direct, and stage a play in Gikuyu, Ngugi's first language. And the argument that was in the making was that the true liberation of the people must also take ownership of their narratives in their own language, because if they persisted in promoting writings or thought in European languages, they were simply appendages, one might say, of the empire. So Ngugi's move, not just to stop writing in English for his creative work, but also publishing Decolonizing the Mind, which was a collection of essays that distilled the question of the politics of language and artistic production. So we can say this was a foundational thought that has had huge inroads or made enormous inroads in the way post-colonial and African literature are taught around the world. So he transcended just being a fiction writer to be a cultural theorist as well. So those are we can say there were similar connections with Africa's diasporas, people of the Caribbean, and other locations from the continent that were with French, so-called Francophone Africa or Lusophone Africa, where Portuguese was utilized. And I think since that declaration, I think the roots of this evolution, perhaps one can say, there was a 1962 conference Ngugi attended as a student at Makerere. He had only published a short story in English. I think the conference was called Conference on African Literature, African Writers of English Imagination. And Ngugi thought this is a strange formulation, because nobody thinks about Chinese literature in another language, in say French. Chinese literature is in Chinese, or American literature. Nobody talks about American literature in France. I mean, in French. So he was bringing to us the absurdities that we had come to accept as the normalcy that defines African literature. So it's only in Africa where, even to this day, we are still contesting the validity of indigenous African languages, more than 2,000 languages of them. And all we have seen over the last 50 years is...
So, Peter, I just want to then look at how politically in his writing, his tone would have changed from the times of when he published Petals of Blood in 1977 to even up until now?
Well, there is a theory, perhaps unfounded, that his early writings, so his seminal novel Whip-Not Child and the two other books that came afterwards, The River Between and A Grain of Wheat, that these were books envisioned or fashioned with great artistic accomplishment, and that subsequent books or even plays, novels, were hampered by over politicization of these narratives. I take a different view. Rather, what I see is that he is evolving. I think by the time you read Petals of Blood, which came after just before his imprisonment, 1977. Consequently, the novels that he published that were published within 2 years of his incarceration, Devil on the Cross and Matigari, they were initially written in Gikuyu. And one can say, by the time you read Petals of Blood, which is essentially a critique on political elite that are acquiescing to the dictates of global finance to exploit local conditions. There is the argument that this was the text that signaled what some critics called Ngugi's shift to the left or to the extreme left, that it become very radicalized in thinking of the way politics is organized. But Ngugi was no political ideologue, and he refused these simplistic labels, declaring him a Marxist, a communist, this and that. All those were labels that were applied to minimize and undermine the deeper question that he was asking, and the questions were: how have the material conditions of our people remained the same so many years after independence? So the initial trigger for him, because a writer can be misinterpreted. His initial trigger for these questions was just how the Mau Mau, the fighters who were in the forest for 9 years, treated after independence. And so the trading away of the promises of independence are really the hallmarks, the political betrayal are the hallmarks of his post-detention writings. But even one can say, even the play that got him in trouble, which was written in Gikuyu, I Will Marry When I Want, Gahika Deda, or I Will Marry When I Want, was examining this very question. So to this day, one can say many African states are in similar conditions, whether it's South Africa, Zimbabwe, Kenya, the festering question, which is what Ngugi's fiction was articulating, was the place of, or the centrality of, the people and the indigenous cultures. And also, one might say, land is very central. Land ownership, land redistribution, and political elite simply taking on the roles that were performed by the Brits or other colonizers, extending what Frantz Fanon in his book Wretched of the Earth articulates very, very powerfully.
It's such a pity that we have run out of time. I could have this conversation with you forever, but really appreciate your insights, your sharing of personal experiences and thought around the legacy of Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Peter Kimani is a Kenyan writer and academic, just sharing his reflections on the life and the legacy of Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Brings the time to 2 minutes to 10, so just enough time to catch up with Shayla and Dukumana to find out what's coming up on Hotlines this evening. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I just took it for granted.
That can happen. I'm busy listening to you. I'm like, oh man, she sounds so lovely.
I'm in the zone. You'll forgive me. So, what's happening this evening?
Well, we always chat about career spaces that touches the heart, really. So we're going to be focusing a lot on having a conversation with Susan Maduna, who has recently been appointed Central Region Executive Committee of the Motor Industry Workshop Association. So it's going to be interesting because women in the motor industry, I always think it's very, very fantastic and very interesting. So that's what we're going to be chatting about.
And a very male-dominated sector.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I remember, Kazno Man, she actually graduated as what's the word now? It just escaped my mind. But she studied something that's very male-dominated in the motor industry as well, mechanical engineering. Yes.
Oh. Yeah. Kitty, fun fact: I've always wanted to be a writer for just test driving vehicle models and performance. It's just been one of those dreams, or even just have a TV show on it. That's how.
Yeah, I remember I had an idea, but it was so silly. It had to do with motors and interviews and just having fun. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I live right next to the Kailami racetrack.
Yeah.
And when I hear it in the morning, when am I going to do that? So maybe there's something in there for us.
You should check out the Formula One documentary. It's really, really awesome.
Right. Yeah. Great. Thanks a lot, Kitty. And that's what's coming up on Hotlines this evening. It's exactly smack on the button, 10 p.m. from the Africa World Hour team. Thanks for listening, watching. Do enjoy the rest of your listening and watching here on Channel Africa.
At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla.
Channel Africa.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word, tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Hotlines bring you fresh perspectives about love after dark. With Shayla Dukumana.
It's exactly 1 minute after 10 o'clock right here on Hotlines. My name is Kitty Petlas, standing in for Shayla. We're together all the way until midnight. Welcome to it. We're coming straight from our South African studios in Johannesburg, SABC. And you can always find us on channel 628 on OpenView HD, channel 802 on DSTV Audio Bouquet. I'm very excited because we're going to be chatting about very, very interesting things. Close to the heart, of course, it is Hotlines at the end of the day. And we're going to be chatting, as I said, to Susan Maduna. And I'm really excited to have this conversation because, this is a very male-dominated industry when it comes to the motor industry. So it's going to be hot. It's going to be refreshing to be chatting to a well-respected woman in the industry, and she has been recently appointed as the Central Region Executive Committee of the Motor Industry Workshop Association. So that's something that we're going to be looking forward to, and I think we're going to be having that conversation about 20 past 10. Welcome to it. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to just start things on a lighter note. We're going to listen to a little something lovely for the ears, and then we're going to pick up everything right after this.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
When the sun goes down, we don't stop the talk. Channel Africa, the best nighttime radio.
No, 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 no. Oh, yeah.
6 till 9, Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m., 5 till 6. We put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochi Tika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipisa Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m., 5 till 6. We put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochi Tika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipisa Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1. Africa Update with Lulu Kabu. Getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4. Live and real with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money. Africa in Business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6. We put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close